There are two things that I enjoy at the moment: playing GeoGuessr and discovering interesting places. So let's take a look at the most interesting places that I found this week when I was playing GeoGuessr. Let's get into it. Ooh, well, what's this? Where are we? Not entirely sure what language we're speaking. My initial thought was Belgium, but I'll be honest. Well, this is a cool building as well. That's a nice window. That's a nice door. Nice balcony. That's a nice little spot. Right, what is this to our northwest? Halle Port de Halle. So we're in a country that speaks two languages. This company called Quick Burger. I am going with Belgium, you know. Oh God, I don't want to be here. Squeeze me out, squeeze me out, squeeze me out, squeeze me out. Right, we've got 1 minute. Museum de la Port de Halle. Port de Halle. Well, let's just scan the Belgian port. Please load. Please load. I'm assuming port means port on the water. Where were we? Porta de Halle. Halle Port. I'm going to go to Belgium coast. Go to Den Haag. Whoa, we were in Brussels. Okay, right, so what's this Halde Port? Port de Halle. Port de Halle, so that's what we could see, was this castle. Port, does not mean somewhere that you could land a boat. Okay, right, I think I'm about to learn something about the Belgian language. Okay, so I am definitely about to learn something about the Belgian language. First things first, I'm going to learn that it is not called Belgian, it's called Flemish. Now, from my understanding, Flemish is not a single unified language, but rather a collective term for the regional Dutch dialects spoken in northern Belgium, also known as Flanders. Now, linguistically speaking, Flemish and Dutch are pretty much the same, although pronunciation and the meaning of everyday words may differ in some cases. Now, as I said, Belgium have 3 official languages: Flemish, French, and German. And in none of those languages does port or port or porte mean a coastal area where you could dock a boat. In Flemish or Dutch, a port or a porte or a poort is a gate or a gateway, usually referring to a physical opening in a wall or a fence, or in this very specific situation, a city fortification. And in French, a porte is a door. So, I am very frustrated with this round. Now, the general language split in Belgium is that Flemish or Dutch is spoken in the north towards the Dutch border, French is generally spoken in the south towards the French border, and Brussels, in the middle of the country, officially uses both languages. There is also a 1% German-speaking population, mainly in the 9 eastern municipalities closest to the German border. But more importantly, what was that cool castle? So that was the Port de Halle, or the Halle Gate. Now, Halle is a city 14 miles to the southwest of Brussels, and it was named the Halle Gate simply because it was the starting point for the road that led to Halle. In the same vein that if you're on Oxford Street in central London, and if you just keep going west, eventually you'll end up in Oxford. Built between 1381 and 1387, the Halle Gate was one of 7 city gates to the second set of defensive walls that encircled Brussels. Now, the Halle Gate has everything that you would want in a castle-like building. It's got arrow-slit windows, it had a drawbridge and a moat, and it also had a portcullis, which are those scary metal gates that drop down from above. Although sadly, we are too late, slightly too late, to see the portcullis in action, as its military purpose ended not too long ago in 1564. In the 1800s, the defensive walls and 6 of the 7 gates were demolished to improve transport around Brussels, with the Halle Gate being the only surviving one. The footprint of those defensive walls are still visible to this day, as it is now the R20 ring road, known locally as the Small Ring. So after all that, it turns out that I was not looking for a harbour, I was looking for the last surviving gateway into medieval Brussels, all because I misunderstood a single word. One wrong assumption, one fascinating rabbit hole. That's GeoGuessr. Ooh, oh, cool. Okay, well, this is getting Googled. So, right, we're feeling America, yeah? We're in downtown Tulsa. Tulsa is Oklahoma? Yes. Right, downtown. Boom. Oh, can we no move this? That'd be cool, wouldn't it? Elgin. And unknown. Oh, I'd really like to no move this. Elgin and second. What direction are we on? We're going northeast east. Hold on. No, right. Okay, second, first, second. Elgin. Here we go. The Dilly Diner. Right, but so is this the Dilly Diner? No, that's Reds. But to our southeast, we've got so the crossing is to our north. So yeah, we're going to be here. The Blue Dome. Are we won over? We were. Wait. Oh, I just got the angles confused. All right, well, let's find out what's going on with this Blue Dome. So my journey into learning about the Blue Dome has been fascinating, because the Blue Dome isn't just a cool building and a local landmark. It is its own district, the Blue Dome District. Now, the Blue Dome District is a 17 city block area, or about 59 acres. And the Blue Dome District is all about the dome. If you look around, you'll see that all the streetlights in the area have their own little Blue Dome hats. All of the roads are lined with street art celebrating the Blue Dome. And the Blue Dome District even has its own custom bike fences. And if you look at the background, you'll see that the Blue Dome District even has its own Blue Dome market. Reading the reviews on Google, I learned that the Blue Dome District even has its own music and arts festival, and it's not too clear on if they're just making music and art about the Blue Dome or if they've opened it up a little bit wider. In my heart, I'm hoping it's a music and arts festival purely focused on making art about the Blue Dome. That's my dream. But I am sure that you're all asking yourself the same question that I did. Why? What is or was the Blue Dome? Well, the Blue Dome finds its roots all the way back in the iconic Route 66, the legendary 2,448-mile highway from Chicago, Illinois to Santa Monica, California, and the mother road of the all-American road trip. In 1924, the Blue Dome was opened as a 24-hour service station 2 blocks south of the original Route 66, and it's been an institution or a rite of passage to many of those doing the iconic journey ever since. Some say that the iconic Blue Dome being visible from the highway was the driver to its success. And although the Blue Dome is cool, I respect that, I suspect that the driver of its success was the fact that it offered a 24-hour bathroom in the middle of nowhere in 1924. I think I think it's a mix of both. Now, the rest, as they say, is history, and the Blue Dome has become an iconic mainstay of downtown Tulsa culture. It's said that the eye-catching Blue Dome was inspired by the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, which was completed in 573 AD, and it was one of the first ever buildings in the world to have a fully pendantive dome. And I had to look up what pendantive meant, and it is essentially a circular dome on a square building. Now, Santorini in Greece also has some fantastic examples of Blue Dome buildings. They are beautiful. There's some wonderful architecture in Santorini, but only Tulsa has an official Blue Dome district. Somewhere along the way, one small service station became an entire neighborhood, a 102-year legacy, all down to a domed blue roof. We've got a bus, Transport for Ireland. We've got a canal running south-southwest to east. We're in Ireland. South-southwest to east. One bridge going north, the other bridge going northwest. Yeah. Hull of a Viking ship. Oh, whoa! Cool, that's cool. All right, well, we've got to find out more about that boat, definitely. Let's lock it in, but Hull of a Viking ship, 1994 by ellipsis unknown. All right, well, we will find out. So we're in Dublin, Ireland, in an area called Wood Quay, and this one is pretty funny on my part. So I was looking for the hull of a Viking ship like I'd seen on the map, and I spotted this boat in the distance, and on closer inspection, this is not the hull of a Viking ship, but a whole mini Viking ship seating area next to a bus stop. In 1988, Dublin City Council commissioned Irish sculptor Betty Newman Maguire to make this permanent installation of bronze, steel and local oak. The installation is called Bait, which in Irish means drowned or sunken, although locals refer to this as the boat that don't float. Now the boat that don't float is pretty cool, but according to the map, it is not what I was supposed to be looking for, what I was actually supposed to be looking for. And somehow I cannot believe that I missed it. Was this ginormous thing here? Now that is the hull of a Viking ship. Installed by Irish sculptor and artist Michael Warren, this 9-metre tall wooden structure evokes the form of a Viking ship hull, whilst also symbolising the flow of the River Liffey. But this led my ignorant self to a much bigger question. Why are there two Viking ship monuments in the heart of Dublin, Ireland? Well, to answer this question, we need to rewind all the way back to 853 AD. Now, Dublin itself had been established by the Gaels in the 7th century, but in 853 Dublin was invaded by the Vikings, who established the Hiberno-Norse kingdom of Dublin, which lasted for the better part of 300 years. And I'll be completely honest here, I had no idea that Ireland had such a rich Viking history. I think that the Vikings had bopped in and out and done a couple of raids here or there. I definitely didn't know that they established a multi-century settlement and kingdom. Even on Wikipedia, the early Scandinavian Dublin page is so much longer than I expected, and that's just the early page. The Vikings not only established Dublin, but also Wexford, Waterford, Cork and Limerick. Now the patch of land that we were on is called Wood Quay, which now houses the Dublin City Council. But prior to its construction, the National Museum of Ireland conducted large-scale archaeological excavations on the site, uncovering thousands and thousands of objects, well over 100 dwellings, and environmental evidence that covered 5 centuries of medieval occupation. In September 1978, 20,000 people marched in protest to stop the proposed construction on the land, and 52 of those protesters began a 3-week sit-in protest dubbed Operation Citric. Citric meaning true to victory in Old Norse. Although the protests were ultimately unsuccessful, the movement highlighted the lack of legal protection for such historically important sites in Ireland. Now, all of the artefacts from those excavations are now on display in the National Museum of Ireland, and the large volume of objects excavated from the site, the fact that it was such a large volume, is all down to the fact that the soil conditions were anaerobic or without oxygen, meaning that even delicate little wooden artifacts could survive underground for centuries. Over 100 meters of medieval city wall was unearthed in 1974, and every stone you'll notice has a number on it, and they were numbered because the original plan was to dismantle the wall and rebuild it somewhere else. Unfortunately, that never happened, and the numbers now remain on the wall as a reminder of how close Dublin came to losing part of its medieval history. As it is a public building, you can just go inside and ask to have a look. And whilst you're there, if you walk around the perimeter of the City Council building, you will see several of these brass plaques on the floor, each plaque depicting an artifact that was found and unearthed in that specific location. If you walk a little bit further, you can go into this very normal looking Lidl on Longford Little Street. Wait, Little on Longford Little Street, that's more of a tongue twister to say out loud than I was expecting. Except that this normal looking Lidl was built on the top of a 11th century Viking house, the ruins of which are visible through the glass floors. Now I'm a big fan of the middle aisle of Lidl, but that could just be the coolest middle of Lidl in the world. But then finally, if you're looking at the Dublin City Council building whilst you're on Wine Tavern Street and you just look behind you, you'll see this. A slightly less famous blue dome. So there we have it. These are the things that I learned this week that I found the most interesting. I hope you all learned something that you didn't know before. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Please consider subscribing and just go and play some GeoGuessr or go and learn some interesting stuff. It's a really good hobby.